The story of Lorenzo begins with a lost bet that would change his life. Lorenzo was known for being a shrewd young man always willing to take risks and seize opportunities. However, this time luck was not on his side. After losing a considerable bet to Girino, a powerful and feared man in the region, Lorenzo finds himself in a very dangerous situation. Girino is not the type of person who easily forgives debts, and instead of waiting for an amicable solution, he sends his thugs to find Lorenzo to make him pay with interest. If this is your first time on the channel, subscribe now so you don't miss any important content about the darkest chapters of our history. Realizing the imminent danger, Lorenzo decides to flee. He is not a coward, but he knows that facing Girino would be his end. With his agility and quick thinking, he manages to elude Girino's men, but he knows he cannot keep running indefinitely. He needs a plan. Before fleeing completely, Lorenzo cannot help but think of Pampinia, a beautiful young woman from a wealthy family he had met some time ago. Although their relationship had never been formal, Lorenzo always felt something special for her. Pampinia also seemed to have feelings for him, even though her family situation was complicated since the death of her parents, with her inheritance trapped in a web of debts. Girino had taken advantage of this to demand Pampinia's hand in marriage as a way to settle her family's debts. Lorenzo, aware of this, decides not to say goodbye to her, fearing that his presence would only complicate things further for both of them. However, Lorenzo's love for Pampinia remains strong despite his dangerous situation. His mind is torn between the need to survive and his desire to protect the woman he loves. During his flight, Lorenzo travels rural roads, hiding from Girino's thugs. On his journey, he meets a man traveling in a cart, transporting a deaf-mute gardener to a convent of nuns. The man, noticing Lorenzo's curiosity, explains that the gardener was on his way to start work at the convent but had decided not to continue with his task due to a recent accident. This sparks an idea in Lorenzo's mind. Pretending to be deaf-mute could be the perfect cover to avoid being found by Girino's men. Without further hesitation, Lorenzo decides to assume the identity of the gardener and travel to the convent, where he hopes to find temporary refuge and maintain his anonymity. Upon arriving at the convent, Lorenzo is met with curious and suspicious looks. The nuns were not used to the presence of men in their community, let alone one as young and attractive as him. The abbess, always cautious, inspects him carefully, making sure he is truly who he says he is. Although Lorenzo feels nervous about the situation, he remains firm in his role as a deaf-mute, using gestures and facial expressions to communicate. What Lorenzo did not expect was the reaction of the nuns when they saw him as someone who could neither hear nor speak. Soon, he becomes the object of their curiosity. Some of the nuns, deprived of male interaction, feel tempted by his presence and gradually begin to approach him in unexpected ways. At first, Lorenzo feels uncomfortable, but he realizes that he cannot reveal his identity if he wants to stay safe. The nuns, convinced that Lorenzo is harmless and unable to relate to them, begin making bolder propositions. One by one, several of them take advantage of the situation to get closer to him under the pretext of helping with his gardening work or cleaning him up after a long day. Lorenzo, despite the strangeness of the situation, decides to go along with his plan, secretly enjoying the benefits of his deception. Meanwhile, Pampinia faces a crossroads in her life. Girino is putting increasing pressure on her to accept marrying him and settling her family's debts. Pampinia, although fearful of her future, cannot stop thinking about Lorenzo. She has heard rumors that Lorenzo is on the run and that he has been seen near the convent. Driven by her love and the need to see him once more, she decides to make a bold choice. She will disguise herself as a nun to infiltrate the convent and find out if the rumors about Lorenzo are true. When Pampinia arrives at the convent disguised as a nun, she encounters a situation even more surprising than she had imagined. Lorenzo, the man she thought was in danger, seems to be enjoying life at the convent, surrounded by nuns who pamper him and give him all their attention. Pampinia, though jealous, decides not to reveal her identity immediately. Instead, she observes how Lorenzo interacts with the nuns and wonders what has led to this unexpected turn of events. Lorenzo, for his part, continues to maintain his ruse but begins to notice something strange. There is one nun in particular who seems more interested in him than the others, and not in the same way that the others do. One day, while Lorenzo is busy in the garden, this mysterious nun seizes the opportunity to confront him. Using gestures and facial expressions, she tries to make him understand that she is not happy with what he is doing. Lorenzo, confused, does not fully understand her intentions but suspects that something is about to go wrong. Everything reaches a critical point when, during one of his sessions with the nuns, Lorenzo makes a mistake. While one of the nuns leaves after spending the night with him, Lorenzo, drowsy and distracted, mutters a few words quietly. The nun, stunned, realizes that Lorenzo is not deaf-mute at all. Filled with fury and embarrassment, the nuns decide to expel him from the convent immediately. Lorenzo, with no other options, flees once again, but this time his destination is uncertain. As Lorenzo runs from the convent, Pampinia faces a difficult choice. Now that she has seen Lorenzo's true nature, can she forgive him for his deceptions? At the same time, the Russian count, the fiancé her parents had chosen for her before they died, arrives in the kingdom looking for his future wife. The count, intrigued by Pampinia's disappearance, begins to investigate and soon learns that his fiancé might be at the convent. Father Tindaro, a painter who had assumed the identity of a priest, also plays a crucial role in the outcome of the story. Upon discovering that Lorenzo is alive and has escaped from the convent, he decides to intervene. Tindaro, who had been pretending to be a priest as part of a previous agreement, reveals the truth about his identity, triggering a series of events that change the course of Pampinia and Lorenzo's lives. In a final confrontation between Lorenzo, the Russian count, and Girino, Lorenzo and the count team up to defeat Girino. With the help of Father Tindaro, they manage to save Pampinia from an arranged marriage, and finally, the truth comes to light. Pampinia, who had been the nun who confronted Lorenzo at the convent, reveals that she kissed him as a sign of her love. With the threat of Girino removed, Pampinia is free to choose her destiny. Although she was initially torn between her love for Lorenzo and her duty toward the Russian count, she decides to follow her heart and stay with Lorenzo. The Russian count, for his part, finds comfort in another woman and leaves the kingdom to start a new life. Lorenzo and Pampinia, finally together, begin a new chapter in their lives, free from the intrigues that had surrounded them. If you've made it this far and have learned something new from our stories, subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming videos. Together, we can uncover and remember the truths that history often tries to hide.